I'm going to put mute on me while you're doing
This meeting is being recorded.
All right. So my name is Morgan Lee, and we are in group 1. We're doing our presentation on brain development. So I am doing the prenatal development, and it begins in 3 different phases. So the first phase is the germinal phase, and this is conception through week 2. And then it goes into the embryonic period, which is week 3 through week 8. And then week 9 through birth is the fetal period. And I have a little video I want to share for the different phases.
Prenatal development is the time after conception when a baby forms from a single cell. It's a time of remarkable change, occurring in 3 main stages: the germinal stage, the embryonic period, and the fetal period. The germinal stage begins when the egg becomes fertilized with sperm. This single cell journeys down the fallopian tube to the uterus and begins to divide. As the cells rapidly multiply, the outer cells eventually become the placenta, while the inner cells form the embryo. The cells develop into what is known as a blastocyst. Once at the uterus, the blastocyst attaches to the uterine wall through a process known as implantation. The 3rd week after conception, the mass of cells become an embryo. Over the next month, the embryo becomes distinctly human. The neural tube forms, later developing into the central nervous system. The head begins to form, followed by the eyes, nose, ears, and mouth. And buds that will form the arms and legs appear. During the 9th week and through birth, the embryo becomes known as a fetus. This stage is marked by amazing change and growth, and important changes in the brain take place. Between the 9th and 12th week, the fetus begins to make reflexive motions with its arms and legs. During the 3rd month, the sex organs start to differentiate. And by the end of the 3rd month, all parts of the body are formed. Like the body, brain development does not end at birth. In fact, between birth and preschool, the brain quadruples in size.
Okay, go back to. All right. So as was mentioned, the embryonic period, it starts to form what's called the primitive streak. And you can see in this picture on the left here, that's kind of what after the primitive streak forms, the end result is that there. So it forms into the neural tube, and the neural tube is actually what forms into the central nervous system, and it turns into like 3 distinct, when it starts just like bulbs, and then as it continues to develop and grow, it separates into the forebrain, the midbrain, and the hindbrain. And you can see in this picture of the adult brain what the forebrain, midbrain, and hindbrain look like as a grown adult brain, but when it starts, it's very kind of different in its what it looks like. Neurons are brain cells, and they start as neural progenitor cells, and these are what are able to duplicate and form into neurons. Once it becomes a neuron, they can't actually duplicate anymore, so it's kind of the end of their life cycle, but they stay and specialize in their function and stay that way their whole entire life. And by mid-pregnancy, the baby has developed billions of neurons. So that was shocking to me, how many neurons you have as a fetus. Like I said, the neural tube, it turns into the central nervous system. So it's the first system that begins developing in the embryo. And by week 22, it starts to regulate things such as your heart rate, the breathing, and the sucking reflex. And so that that regulation makes it the age of viability. When I was researching about it, in the book that we read, it said 22 weeks, but a lot of what I was reading said anywhere between 23 and 24 weeks. And any baby that's born before 24 weeks is a less than 50% chance of survival, even though that they technically it is the age of viability. So they definitely grow a lot, and their central nervous system really develops when they're in the womb. And then here are my references. Guess I'll leave that there for a second to read those. And yeah, so now I will stop sharing, and then I'll turn the time over to Tiffany for her part.
All right, let me share a screen. And then I will open up and do slideshow. Okay. So, all right. Hi, my name is Tiffany Cook, and my subtopic is brain development during the second year after birth. A child's brain will grow to 75% of what it will be as an adult by the age of 24 months. The brain will do a lot more than just grow during this time. As the second year of birth begins, a child's brain is programmed to be curious. The use of the scientific method is used to describe how they learn, like hypothesizing, observing, experimenting, analyzing, and concluding. Now I will move to the next slide. Okay, and in brain development regarding language, in the second year after birth, this is the period from age 1 to age 2. Once a baby reaches 12 months, their ability to understand never heard language drops and continues to drop through childhood. Speaking and reading to your child is so important and should be started right after birth. I thought that was a little strange when I was first having my children, when I had my first child, but I remember reading to him, and I really do believe that that is true, that it should start immediately. In the first 2 years, children hear every linguistic sound, but by adulthood, most adults struggle to hear differences in some language. So plasticity in the brain has been proven to help a child's brain adapt to what they experience or what they're hearing. So this is how some adults are able to learn a new language, is through that plasticity. So switch to the next slide. Then next, I'm going to talk about brain variations and in regards to emotions with brain development. There are natural emotions we have from the function of the amygdala. Experience-based learning can be highly influenced by genes. Prenatal experience and early care when it comes to brain growth. For example, someone who is highly emotional, laughing, crying, yelling a lot, should be asked about their first 2 years of life and what it was like. While most of us won't remember, it is possible that their parents or caregivers could give insight into this to answer these types of questions. And then the last slide, I'm going to talk about brain or toxins and brain development. So microbiome gut-brain axis is where the microbial in the gut can have a direct effect on cognitive development. In the study that I was reading about, there were 39 one-year-olds that were analyzed. Each child gave a fecal sample. The amygdala was suspected of manipulation of gut microbiota, was altering the structure and neurochemistry in the brain in that particular region. This is part of the brain, or this is the part of the brain that controls how a child would process or respond to a threat. There is a ton in this study that I do not have time to talk about, but it was very interesting. But Gao concluded that the gut microbiome does impact the brain development and increases the risk of mental disorders. By the age of 12 months, children have a fear naturally of loud sounds, unexpected sights, like people they wouldn't know. Some separation anxiety is normal at 12 months, but gets stronger by age 2, and then usually lessens. If serious separation anxiety continues after age 3, this is a sign of an emotional disorder. If a child who is scared of the flushing of like a toilet or a loud toy, if they can be comforted and reassured, they may eventually enjoy these things later on. Plasticity and nature and nurture play a huge role in the outcome of children's brain development. And it's important for us to remember that as we have our own children or help with our grandchildren or whatever our situation or story is. Here are my references, and I'll let you look at that for just a minute before I stop screen sharing. Okay. Exit full screen. And then we can go here and go to stop sharing. Okay.